Hi, my name's Patty Baker. Thanks for joining me recorded, and welcome to this community page called Live on Purpose. I don't believe we were created to spend our whole lives searching for our purpose, but rather to live our life on purpose, fully engaged in the present moment, heart, soul, mind, and strength, spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, physically present in each moment of each day. And when we do that, our purpose unfolds before us. So there's no reason to go out and search when you're already living it out in the moment. And each week on this page, we have posts that are inspirational and thought-provoking, and they're based around those core values in our life of our heart, soul, mind, and strength, loving God, loving others, and self-love. And in addition to that, we also have a weekly broadcast, which, if you're joining me live, is now Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, wherever you are in the U.S. And you can join recorded at any time. Tonight's topic comes from, just as all of the topics do, Facebook Messenger. So if you have a topic, question, suggestion, life experience that you want to share, join in by sending your request over to the inbox. I would love to be able to add it to, no question is out of the question, and we'll add it to the topic list. And for you joining me live, if it's your first time, welcome, I see you. However, I will not acknowledge you unless you make a comment. There is a 10-second delay, so please know that. In addition to all of that, I appreciate you being here. So if you don't comment, although I see you, just know that I love you, and I'm glad you're hanging out in the back of the room. For the rest of you, I just want to say, oh, are you saying it's not, Robbie, I can see you, but David, you're saying that the video's not playing for you? Oh no, that's not good. That's not good at all. Can you hear me now? Can you see me now? I'm not sure. I'll just put a little post and hear me. And then you guys can respond, let me know. Oh, great. Okay, so you can. Okay, good. I'm glad that you got that worked out, David. I was like, what? I'm seeing all of y'all on here. Is that just my end or everybody else? So I'm glad. Hi, Patrick. Wonderful to see you. Hey, I want to let you know. Hi, Ed. Wonderful to see you. Pat's in the house tonight. Glad. And Robbie, you're here. David, always good to see you. As we get started on millennials, wonderful. I'm glad you can that you got that worked out on your end. Millennials. That's the topic for tonight. I, as you know, get 100 or so throughout the week Facebook inbox messages. I'm usually a day or so behind because I do respond to all of them. But in there are life experiences, questions, topics, hi Joe, about baby boomers and Gen Xers struggling with their kids who happen to be millennials. And some of the things that are coming through are not healthy. And so I hear what they're saying and I understand what they're saying about the millennials. However, I don't agree with it. And so I want to kind of debunk that tonight a little bit. I want to preface this by saying, you know, over half my friends are millennials. I'm pushing up against 50. I'm a Gen Xer. Hi, Nathan. Great to see you tonight. There are messages that I've had come in from both baby boomers and Gen Xers who are in the business world. They're in various sectors of the workforce. Also, of course, parents. Who else? Teachers. I've had a few teachers, especially the end of the year here, talking about that. I have had recent conversations in the last 2 weeks with pastors and people in the media entertainment industry as well. And one healthcare provider talked to me, and when they did, they mentioned millennials. And I'm like, man, maybe it's just on my radar because I'm building out this topic over the last few weeks, but every time I'm hearing it coming up, and I'm not bringing it up. It's just part of conversation. So I'm like, really? I don't get it. So some of the things that I'm hearing, are millennials are on their phones constantly. They have a meme and selfie obsession. They want to work from home all the time. They're constantly challenging authority, that they're privileged, cocky, entitled, lazy, impatient. And all I had to say is, who raised these millennials? Oh yeah, that's right. We did. So at some level, if you have a problem, look at yourself. You raised it. At the other side of it is, I don't think we as previous generations are really understanding why millennials are doing and saying and being the way they are. And I want to give just a little bit of, and I'm saying a little bit, but man, there's a lot here. I want to talk about who they are and then who the previous generations are. And I want to take a look at us, Gen Xer, and before me, baby boomers, and how we see what has happened in the past and how that has reflected in what you're seeing today in millennials. They stand on our shoulders, if you will. So I think we miss all that. And I believe that the millennials deserve a little bit more respect than what the previous generations are giving them. So that's where I'm headed tonight. Who are millennials? Millennials are from the early 80s to early 2000s. The term was coined, I think, in 1987 or something, because that's when people born in 1982 were entering school and were going to graduate in 2000. And thus the millennial generation was born. And in addition to that, it's also considered the digital age, which, by the way, we created and they're living in, right? So I'm saying we, and I'm referring collectively as the previous generations, right? So what is it that, well, okay, so I told you about the age range, right, of millennials. Let me just take a minute and go back. Traditionalists, they were born like mid-20s to mid-40s. Baby boomers, mid-40s, mid-60s or so, give or take, you know, as those kind of ebb and flow and weave into generation to generation. To the mid-40s to mid-60s for baby boomers. Gen Xers, mid-60s, late 60s into early to mid-80s. So that's kind of how these generations are spanning over time. What are these millennials doing? Right? What are they doing? I'm going to tell you. They are following a truth that came from the Declaration of Independence in 1776. That was drafted by Thomas Jefferson, passed through 4 or 5 people, and then went into a committee. And this language, this phrase was put in there. And it says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." This phrase from the Declaration of Independence was written almost 250 years ago, 242 if my math serves me right. Previous generations have been trying to fulfill this too. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But what is life? As a culture, we've struggled with this. We've struggled with life through abortion, through end-of-life care, and early an end-of-life termination based upon diagnosis and health care. We've struggled with liberty in our country with regards to certain freedoms based upon our age, based upon our race, based upon our sexuality, based upon our gender. Liberties based upon whether we can carry a gun and whether we can smoke marijuana. Liberty. And then we talk about happiness, the pursuit of happiness. Hey, what's happiness for me may not be happiness for you. That's a pretty broad subject, isn't it? And so really, are millennials doing anything different than what the previous generations were doing? Absolutely not. They may be going at it a little bit differently, but you know what? I don't fault them for it one bit. As a matter of fact, I think they're going at it in a different way, and I think that it's in a good way for who we are as a society and where we are in our culture. And let me explain why. Millennials are reshaping the landscape of our culture. And we, as previous generations, need to take a step back and out of who we are and set that aside for just a second in order to see more clearly what the offspring of us is trying to accomplish. Change is inevitable. And we get stuck in who we are and how we were raised rather than looking at life with the vitality and the energy that it needs in order to be propelled forward. I believe that there are 7 areas that create a culture. I'm going to list them for you. Business. And I'm pulling this together just based upon what I understand. Okay, there might be science behind it. There might be other things that make up culture, but these are the ones I'm talking about tonight. I believe there are 7. Business, education, healthcare, media, entertainment, family, education, and religion. And I want to talk about each one of those tonight and how past generations have shaped the culture, how the past generations have shaped the millennials and how that is being reflected now in our culture. And I want to start with the first one, which is business. And I'm going to go way back here and talk about traditionalists and what the baby boomers were born into, and that was the stock market crash. We're talking about business, the economy of 1929. And we saw almost a 10-year period of where people struggled. Immigrants struggled. We had such a hard time during that it took us a decade to try and get up out of it. When we did, it was through the Industrial Revolution. It was through manufacturing. And over half of our economy was thriving off of the manufacturing industry. Vehicles and so on and so forth. We were manufacturing everything. It was amazing. And then all of a sudden the baby boomers kicked in and they're living off the benefits of that. And so what the baby boomers are doing is buying, and buying. And they've got a GI Bill because they've just come out of a war. And so what's happening is they're going to college, they're making more money, and now they are fat, lazy, and happy. The pursuit of happiness, life, and liberty. And so they have this, hi Chris, and so they have this mindset that whatever we can do, we've got to get more money, we've got to buy more stuff, and that's going to make us happy. And so now there is this big machine of consumerism that's starting, and it's not enough money, and men are picking up second jobs, and women are entering the workforce. And so all of a sudden we've got this issue that people are wanting more money. They've got a degree. They want to be able to do everything. Once they get into a job and learn a skill, they're there until they get the gold watch at the retirement party and they're done. And they got their money in the stock market and everything's great. And they bought a house in the suburbs and they have cars and boats and stuff. They even have storage spaces for all their stuff. Baby boomers into Gen Xers. Gen Xers got $200,000 approximately in debt from all of this. And what happened in 2008, 10 years ago, was another crash. It wasn't sustainable. It wasn't sustainable. It was already starting to turn in the early 80s, which is when I just told you that the millennials were born. I lived in Southern California. I grew up there, and I remember working for an international frozen food manufacturer. We couldn't find a labor force. 90% of our production teams came from Mexico. And I also remember during the early 80s, and still exists in some places today in our country, but you will see a large immigrant population waiting outside of these big box home improvement stores for work. They're willing to stand out there in hopes that someone will pick them up and then go and work for the day. But if that same truck goes to the welfare office in front of family services and tries to pick up some people, they can't get anybody. So we have this mindset. And we can't hold on to the manufacturing jobs that we have because now the salaries and the level is so high and people aren't wanting to do those jobs. I remember in the early 80s, Long Beach, full of these cargo ships with these big containers on them. Why? Because by then we were starting to get imports from other countries who could do it for less. It was all about the money. It was always all about the money. And what we did is we get the money, we get more stuff, and then we buy more stuff, we create debt, and then we lose everything. And this is what the millennials grew up under. Now, millennials look at it differently. Fundamentally, they realize it doesn't work. And so they're looking to create a sustainable, and this is a word that we hear out of millennials all the time. You know why? Because they saw so much instability in the previous generations. So they're looking for sustainability in the economy. And so now, and why are they looking for that? Because we taught them what not to do. So now they're not in their pursuit of life, liberty, in their right to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. What they're doing is they're looking at people, planet, and of course profit in the process. Hi, Debbie. Wonderful to see you tonight, beautiful. So profit, yes. You know, they want to make a profit. If you're not making a profit, the business doesn't exist. So they get that. They get that. So profit, the planet, the people, and personal connection. This is what drives the sustainability portion for it. I want to take you to Genesis. It's the first book in the Bible. And if it's your first time joining me, I use the Bible as a reference source because I believe there are good, valuable truths for everyone in it. It says, so God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Take dominion over it. Take care of it. Be a good steward of it. The generation before saw this whole manufacturing smog. I'm telling you, I used to love to run. When I lived in Southern California, the smog was so bad that you could just see the brown yuck muck laying on it. This whole June gloom that would come in and then all that fog would settle in. And if you breathed in really deeply, it would burn your chest. And now we have laws in place that help with smog, but nonetheless, they've seen that that's not sustainable. Millennials have seen that's not sustainable. Subdue it, God said. Rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the sky and over living creatures that move on the ground. They care about our planet. Larger companies are now forced to have to look through the mindset of the millennial generation for sustainability. with regards to not only profit, and these are large companies, the Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 100 companies that have been around forever. They are now having to look at this current culture that the millennials are creating and going, wait, if I want to continue to keep them as a consumer, I guess we too not only have to look at our profit, but profit for our employees. And we have to look at sustainability for people and planet. And make sure that we're personally connecting and we're not just this big cog in this system of greed. Also, millennials are not seeing this as a career anymore for a couple of reasons. They understand that careers are not sustainable because they saw the huge unemployment jack in 2008. It hiked up so high because the economy crashed and unemployment skyrocketed. Their parents were without jobs, and they were like, you know what? And then they had no skill set to go out and find anything else. And so now they can take a couple classes and pick up a volunteer job and learn a new skill set and go and do another project. And so work is now a series of projects for them. It's not about work. It's not about a career. It's about obtaining skills and continuing to learn new skill sets. Because the truth of the matter is, you may not always have that job, but you'll always maintain skill. And so then this becomes a project type environment. So for these baby boomers, these Gen Xers who are like, my kids they don't have a career. I don't know what's going on. They're not secure in their employment. Honey, neither were we. And we were getting one skill set for our whole lives. So don't badmouth the millennials for how they are viewing work when it didn't work for us. Because now what we're trying to do is focus on job security, when the fact of the matter is there is no job security anymore, honey. It's about transferring your skills from projects to projects. Where are you going to be best suited for this season of time? Because it's not one job from the crib to the grave anymore. They are also seeing, because of this digital age that they're living in, we as baby boomers and Gen Xers created, don't see an American model of society. They see a global society. And so therefore they're networking and they're thinking outside of the box. You know, I have a friend of mine, she was one of 40 people that were selected out of 2,000 applicants to work for a multinational company. And 10 of them were to come from the United States, and she was one of them. And they all had to go to training in Milan, Italy for a couple of weeks. And she travels, to different states for a couple days a week to do training and work with other teams. It's very much collaborative. And this is the new model that we're seeing in the workplace. And now it just makes better sense, because other companies are getting bought out, that she's probably going to move to another city soon. But because she rents, she doesn't have to worry about being saddled with a house, a mortgage, and all of these other things. Because she lives fairly close to work, her daughter's fairly close to her school, everything's right in one community, and she's great in her workplace. It's a mindset. And she's in her early 30s. Millennial. Life, liberty, and the pursuit. We are seeing culture change faster than we've ever seen before because of the digital age that we created. We're seeing more global economy because it's easier to buy online than it is to drive to the store, stand in line, get what you want, which they may or may not have, and come home. And I can wait Amazon Prime for 2 days to get it. I understand now that the internet makes pricing very transparent. So now we're not having to go and get the lowest deal in town. We just look online. We see every year, we see an increase in Black Friday, Cyber Monday sales for the holidays. Why? Because we are moving toward a society where we can buy something in another country that fits more about what we're looking to get. So they're weighing the benefits when they're looking for work based upon time, money, and family. Does that mean that they're not as concerned? But at the end of the day, it's also fulfillment for them too. And it's not to say that it's not about the money, because they still got to pay their cell phone bill. But at the end of the day, there's more that goes into that than just what the Gen Xers and the baby boomers were looking at, which was turn a buck in whatever skill you can get and acquire as much stuff as you can, because you've got to keep up with the Joneses. It's not there. And I'm speaking in broad generalities because not all Gen Xers and baby boomers are in that mindset and are going with the shift or didn't raise their children that way. I get it. But let me tell you, based upon what I'm hearing in our society and in the Facebook Messenger here, that's not the case in general. I want to talk about our government. We have seen baby boomers, Gen Xers, interest rates, adjustable mortgage rates. We've seen trade agreements. We've seen our local government do all this suburban planning, create all of these spaces and buy up all this land. We've seen these bedroom communities that went up in the 80s where you could drop yourself down in a tract home community and you didn't even know where you were, right? And now there's these financial institutions that have become these big conglomerates, and we have all of the Enrons that happened and everything else. And all of the complexity, all of the risk, all of the unknown of big business and what it's done to the family structure with, and I say it again, all of the foreclosures, the stock market crash, the recession in 2008, the bankruptcies, the high unemployment rates, all of that, they don't trust the government. They just don't. What they're looking for is someone who is going to say, we believe in the people, we believe in our planet, and we believe in personal connection. We believe in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in these areas. That's what they want to see. What they're doing now, they meaning millennials, they understand that change is difficult in these large institutions. I just read an article a couple of days ago, I think, and I don't know where I read it. It may have been in the Wall Street Journal. But they have the first female CEO over at the New York Stock Exchange in 226 years. I think she went in there in 1992, maybe? And she started out as an intern where they had these big posh men's restrooms and then like phone booths, if you remember those back in the day. Phone booths that they converted into bathrooms for females. And they're like, you know what? We really probably need to be doing a little overhaul here gender-wise. The good old boy club is beginning to crumble in the big business industry. It's not sustainable to have a government who is untrusting, because now what you have are all of these little skirmishes that are happening around the country because they're taking matters into their own hands. Now what millennials want to do is be more community driven. They want co-ops. They want more cultural and arts experiences in their local communities. They want community-focused events. They want local talent. They want downtown revitalization projects because they don't want to live in the suburbs. They want to live close. They want to live close to work. They don't want to own a home. They'd much rather have a condo. They would much rather be set up in an apartment, in a loft downtown, where it's revitalized, where it's where people can connect, where there's not a lot of private space, but more public space, more community-driven space. And we're seeing that in different pockets throughout the country. They don't trust the banks. They don't trust Wall Street, but they'll use their online apps. But the reason why they don't is because of what they've seen happen to us. So don't fault them for their thinking when they watched what we had done and what was created as a result of it. Think outside the box a little bit. I want to take you to healthcare. I talked about 7 pillars I believe create a culture. Healthcare is the other one. Healthcare, expensive. We use it in excess. We see it as a convenience because our fingernail hurts. And we think that it may be an ingrown toenail, but we don't know. And so now we go and get a referral from our PCP and go to the podiatrist, and they give us a medication, and we get a prescription, and everybody calls it a day, and we're $800, $900 later. And so they're seeing this. We're also seeing where there has been just so much in our healthcare industry due to high stress, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, because of our health lifestyle that we've created as baby boomers and Gen Xers. We've become so sedentary and lazy that our health, our obesity has just been on the rise. And so now what we're doing is we're transferring those eating habits and those lifestyle habits to our children. And the millennials are saying, we don't want to do that. And we don't want to be a slave to the healthcare system. And we're not eating processed foods. We're not going to be going to these big supermarkets to get what we need. We're not doing fast food restaurants anymore. We don't trust the healthcare. The large system of healthcare is rooted in education, government. It's rooted in business. More millennials now, more than the previous generations, baby boomers and Gen Xers combined, are doing natural childbirth. There are more doulas being certified today because they don't want to go through the healthcare system. It's something natural. It shouldn't be an issue. And yet, on the tail end of that is all the vaccinations. Why are we inoculating our children with disease? So they're thinking about these things too, and like, something's not right with this. And I'm not saying that all Gen Xers are against the millennial thinking, but listen to me. I talk and meet up with a lot of people who use the term millennial, and there's usually something negative with it. Step back for a minute and see what they have seen through their eyes and why they're making the decisions today that they're making. They're coming up with natural remedies, more farm-to-table type foods. They're going organic. They want to be socially impacting their communities, so they have community gardens where people can come, and as long as you put in so much money, then you plant, then you come in and weed, and you spend your time in there, and then you get to, with the rest of your neighborhood, to help and pull the crops out for your family. And it helps. There's a certain buy-in, certain foods that are planted, and then it's up to the community to cultivate that. Brilliant. Brilliant. They're going more vegetarian. They're going more pescatarian. So pescatarian is more of a fish and vegetable diet. So you're seeing a lot more of that now. Meats, they're not eating as much red meat. Again, it's all about this healthy lifestyle that they're trying to live in order to sustain, right? Sustainability is the undergirding of all this, because they've seen so much instability in the previous generations. They're not sitting as much anymore. They have standing desks now. They have outdoor spaces and environments that they're wanting to be out in and doing kayaking and golfing and other sports. They're more community based. So you're seeing CrossFit that's kind of popping up, and people are getting together and doing those kind of things where some of us were doing jazzercise and aerobics before. Then we're seeing more meetups for hiking, more outdoor type activities where they're connecting with the environment. Why? Because they love it. They love it. They're embracing it. They are taking dominion of it, what has been created, and they're trying to take care of it and enjoy it. I want to move on to another one of the 7 pillars that I believe creates a culture, and that is our media and entertainment. Of course, we've always seen the sports in our culture. We're seeing more soccer now than we ever have before in many parts of the country, and other rugby and other sports that are predominantly outside of the United States, but because we've become more global, that are now becoming a part of who we are in our society. We've also discovered more arts, more, we see a lot more global, international type cultural events, musicals and shows that show more culture, from the Irish culture, from African culture. So we're allowing those things to come into our environment, where before we weren't. It was Broadway and that's what you got, kind of thing. So we're seeing more of that in our entertainment. We used to use media in the past for information, and it shaped our culture because and it does so today. But we're seeing more reality TV than we ever have before, where they were telling us what to buy, what to eat, what to wear. Now they're saying, hey, this is our company and this is what we believe in. And now based upon that, hopefully you'll buy their product. And so the advertising's gotten a little bit different. People aren't coming home and sitting down in front of the television anymore. As a matter of fact, most people don't even have television because they're using other platforms in the digital age, such as tablets and phones, laptops, in order to connect with the world on a grander scale. We're seeing millennials who are untrusting of our media. They're probably the least informed about the news going on in the world, and quite frankly, so am I. The overt propaganda, they don't want anything to do with it. They would be more concerned about what's going on with connecting with people, and so now you see more Instagram, and you see more Kim Kardashian, and you see Paige Hathaway, and you see all of these other people, because they feel like they're connecting on a more personal level with reality in life than they are with all of the other things that are happening in the world. In general. Not only that, to go on forever like I'm going on with you now, they want tidbits and be done. They don't want to sit here for 30, 40 minutes and hear my mouth run. They've got other things to do. They are looking for what they believe that they can have a direct impact on in the local community. And that's where they go to be a part of government. That's where they're going to be a part of their media and entertainment, is in their local community. So let me give you this. I went, I call them micro communities where I live. I live in a capital city in South Carolina, and so there's a lot of micro communities, I call them. And when I go to this one micro community, you can't buy a Corona. You can't buy a Bud Light. You can buy one of many different kinds of micro local brewed beer, but they're not selling the big name brands. Most people don't want that. They want something local. They want farm to table style eating, and so you'll see that. So what makes it eclectic at that point is because it is local and people are attaching it to it in that way. So it's the same with the media and the entertainment industry as well. And so they're not seeing that kind of advertising because that advertising is happening on social media, on Yelp, on TripAdvisor, Airbnb. So, they're not having to get any sort of advertising anywhere else because all of the local stuff is word of mouth because they're connecting. I want to talk for a second about family. Baby boomers and millennials. Baby boomers, Gen Xers. When we birthed and raised our millennial children, we raised them in homes where dad was gone all the time, or dad wasn't even present. There was a high level of stress. We were driving an hour back and forth to work in the traffic because we lived in the suburbs. We had to make our mortgage. We had 2 cars, and we couldn't make ends meet because we kept buying stuff. And we had a camper and a boat and this and that and the other and jet skis, and we were going four-wheeling and whatever else we were doing, but we were spent out, credit card thick in debt. And so what happened is we created what was called latchkey kids. They had no supervision. They were home alone. And now all of a sudden, what are they doing? They're gaming. They're making connections because we weren't there for them. Not all of us, but I'm just saying as a culture, as a generation. And so now, trust me, this came out in 1990. The movie Home Alone. And the whole thing was focused on kids being home alone. These track houses and everything else, it was time consuming, and there wasn't enough time spent for the kids that were there. And so now we see millennials with a different mindset when it comes to the family unit. Because now what they're doing is they're traveling, but they ain't traveling to work. They want to work from home. They believe that they can connect just as well and do Zoom, to have meetings and do, FaceTime calls and make things happen while they are at home to reduce the travel time. Or they're walking to work, or they're using their bicycle, or they're riding their skateboard, or they're picking up Uber if it's a rain day. They're packing their lunch most of the time, and they're putting their water in glass containers. And they're not drinking as much sports drinks and chemically laden soft drinks. And they're drinking more kombucha tea. Many of the times they don't even need a vehicle. They just don't. If they need to get somewhere, they rent a car. They're traveling, but it's not far. But when they are traveling, it's for vacation. It's for experiential vacation. So they're new experiences, and they can take their kids and introduce them to another culture. Or maybe it's part of a social social project. So they're putting in a well somewhere for a third world country, and they took their children there. They don't have to worry about being gone for 3 weeks for vacation because they're renting. They don't have to worry about the grass. They don't have to worry about picking up the mail. It's all taken care of for them. So they don't have to worry about all the extra things that we did as Gen Xers and baby boomers. Galatians 3:28 says, "There is neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither slave nor free man. There is neither male nor female, for all are one in Christ Jesus." I pulled this scripture for a reason when I'm talking about family, because they have such a worldview of global unity that they don't see beyond their suburb neighborhood. But they are more eclectic in their relationships because they are cross-cultural in their workplace and also cross-cultural on media platforms. So I'm at church on Sunday and I'm talking to my friend Emma. She's 14 years old, and she begins to tell me about how she has friends in Toronto, Canada. She's like, I was up a little bit late last night because I was talking to my friends in Toronto, Canada. I'm like, how do you have friends in Toronto, Canada? And she goes, oh, we're online all the time, and we do this, that, and the other, and nah. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. All I did was had kids in my social studies class or whatever. But she's already connecting with other cultures at 14 years old. Good, bad, or indifferent, it's where it is. I want to talk about our education. The Industrial Revolution, the war created the GI Bill. A lot of people went to college for free, and that money went back into our government system. Many of those colleges, government, federal, and state funding. And so that money just got put back into the coffer, so to speak. Those are gone, unless you're in the military now and you have some sort of educational program that you can tap into. But most people aren't, who are going to college, have debt to the tune of $25,000 plus or minus, and they're saddled with that for the next who knows how long, but it's usually their biggest payment when they come out of college, and now all of a sudden they can't find a job. But let me tell you what we've been doing, baby boomers, Gen Xers, because of our experience in having the GI Bill and going to college and getting a better job and then running that for all it was worth and taking the money and buying stuff and then losing it. We were like, hey, you've got to get an education. You've got to get an education. You've got to go to college. You've got to go to college. They get out of college, and now what? They feel like they've failed the system because they can't find a job doing what they went to school for, and now they've got $25,000 or more. I'm being very conservative here, folks. Worth of debt. And we're disappointed when our kids say, well, I don't really want to go to college right now. I'd really like to go over and be in China for a couple of years. What? Yeah, I'd like to go study in Germany for a couple of years. No, honey, you need to get your degree first, and then you could... See how, and then now all of a sudden we don't like millennials because of what they're doing. We don't think because we are too set in our own ways to think what our children have experienced and why they are doing things just a little differently, and that doesn't make it wrong. Millennials saw an unemployment rate of 20%. Most of them can't even get a job in the degree that they have received. They are now working in non-degree jobs, making way less than what they were promised they would be making. Now they're questioning the education system. The brick and mortar institutions are dying, folks. Millennials, they're keeping their kids home. They don't want to vaccinate them, and they don't believe in the education system that we have right now, which is very authoritarian, and all it does is shove information down your throat. They can do that at home and be with their kids and train them up in the way they should go, in a way that they believe is going to be better for them because they know how the world is moving. I have friends who are now taking their kids out of elementary school, and middle school is coming up, and they're putting them into online learning. And they have other support system in their local micro community to help them, the kids, stay socially connected. Vibrant and growing underground community for homeschooling. But right now, the education system's like, whoa. First off, and I just saw this article, it's on a Facebook page here called Just for Mom. By the way, we don't want to be promoting natural births because we found out that most people who have natural births probably don't want to vaccinate their kids, probably not going to want to put them into school, and it's going to just lose money all the way around. So don't encourage that. Really? I wonder what baby boomer or Gen Xer said that. Experiential learning is what millennials are looking for. They want innovation and creativity. They're seeing things that can grow fast and quickly. So they're wanting to do that. And trust me, if they're going to do a job that if they can't do a job that they were trained up to do in traditional school, and they have to do a job they hate, they might as well do a job they love and get paid less money because they're doing a job they hate to get paid less money. So now we've got a fulfillment factor that's coming into play, that everybody's like, why are you doing that? Just because it makes you happy? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If I'm going to make way less money, I'm going to love my job doing it. It's difficult for them right now because they're trying to stand out on a resume with everybody else doing the same thing. And so what they're having to do is, after they have the piece of paper that says they went through school, now they're having to go out and volunteer or take another course or get some sort of experience somewhere else, an intern somewhere, in order to get it, to put it on the resume so that they stand out ahead of all of the other ones that are just throwing out one resume to 400 employers and see what sticks. So they're trying to get creative that way, which means they're having to do more. I've talked about 6 of the 7 pillars. I want to talk about the last one, and that's religion. I don't like to use the term religion for a couple of reasons. I believe that Jesus came to save us from religion. Interestingly enough, I spoke to 3 or 4 leaders, church leaders, here probably within the last 3 weeks, a pastor within the last week. Very disheartened. There was regional church conference here in the country, and many of the leaders of the church affiliation were there, and pastors, and a baby boomer went up there and started bad-mouthing millennials as these millennial pastors and pastoral leadership people were there. At some point, folks, I don't care what segment or sector of the population you are in, workplace, healthcare, religion, family, media, entertainment. I don't care. Education. You are disrespecting, degrading, and discriminating when you speak poorly about a segment of the population based upon their age. Oh no, it's about their behavior. No, it's not. No, it's not. They believe and have a different mindset than you do. Hi, Steve. They believe and have a different understanding than you do. It doesn't make them wrong. It just makes them different. They're seeing it in a different way, thanks to us. Those millennials walked out of there going, man, we're the next generation. And we just got treated like this? Let me tell you what, folks, that angers me deeply. And then there's even now starting this, you're self-deprecating your generation by saying, hey, I'm a millennial, but I'm not the stereotypical millennial. Really? Why do you have to say that? You know why? It's sad that they have to say that. Because they want to separate themselves from what the baby boomers and Gen Xers are calling millennials in such a bad way. We do it in this country with race, with gender, and we do it with age. And oftentimes baby boomers are like, well, I have silver hair, I can't get a job. So they're discriminating against me based upon age. We're doing the same thing. You don't see it that way. Oh, well, they're disrespecting us. You're disrespecting them. Stop it. What the church has done is they've created another authoritarian, father figure type institution where you go, ingest a bunch of stuff, and then force people to regurgitate it and have a good day. And that's not what Jesus came to do. He came with the understanding of relationship, love being rooted in that, love for God, love for others, love for ourselves. Millennials are trying to get back to that. So rather than just telling them, this is what we believe, this is where you need to go, this is when you need to do it, this is how you need to believe, they want to travel more. They want to meet more cultures. They want to do mission work locally and abroad. They want community-based, relational, spiritual environments. They want a place where you give them the foundational precepts and allow them to sift through that for themselves, through Bible study, through prayer, through fasting. Give them those principles. Don't tell them what to do. Give them the precepts so that they can use those as tools to go and build relationship with God, with others. Foster cross-generational relationships. I'm in the middle. I have friends in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, and I have friends from 14 on up. Probably half my friends are younger than me. A third of them are older than me. I always say I go to the same amount of weddings and baby showers as I do funerals. I try to. Because I want to have an even sense of relationships throughout the generations, because I don't want to ever be so far behind that I just give up on life. I love the energy and the vitality that I get that comes off of that generation that is standing on my shoulders. When they're standing on our shoulders, baby boomers and Gen Xers, we can't see, they can. So all we can say is, what do you see? And then how can we help you in order to lead from the position which you are standing? How can we do that? Quit isolating yourselves from millennials. Why don't you start taking them out for coffee? Why don't you try a kombucha? Sit down, hang out, say, hey, I want to hear your story. What's going on in your world? Tell me about these friends in Toronto. I'd like to know. And how does that work? Stop being divisive. Stop judging. Stop discriminating. Stop spewing prejudice all over the place. Education is more important than ever. They may not think so because they have seen the debt that's come out of it and no job for it. Because we didn't do a very good job, hi Kevin, because we didn't do a very good job in directing them to college. We just said go and get a degree and do whatever you want, and they did whatever made them happy, and it's not getting anything. We don't know what that future looks like. It's coming too fast. But what we do know about it is that there are segments that we can begin to look at through the emerging markets. How much longer is diabetes going to be around and cardiovascular disease? Who knows? Depends on our eating and our lifestyles. They look to be changing. What does that look like? But we always have our necks down, cervical, spine issues. We always have headphones in, ear problems. We're always texting, trigger thumb, tendinitis issues, carpal tunnel. So now we're seeing different segments of where are the next healthcare providers coming out of? What segment of those? What does it look like? So see, we can begin to think a little bit and help guide and direct and give them choices so that they can make better choices than what they've been making by just go to college and get a degree. They are going to need some of these foundational things that they don't have now because we didn't give it to them. And that's why they come across as being arrogant and cocky and impatient and lazy and all of these other things. But we didn't give them the undergirding of what that looks like. Because there are, again, precepts in the workplace, in life, that are necessary for any job. And particularly in this type of global economic economy, language learning. It's amazing how many other countries know English and yet we don't know another language. You know why? We're stuck up. More millennials are learning Chinese right now than I've ever seen before. Me? I learned Spanish. That's where it was. It was great for the culture that I was in at the time and still needed today for me in the workplace that I'm in. However, it's interesting to me that millennials are wanting to teach their children Chinese. Think. Don't disrespect them or disregard what they're doing. Think a little bit more about why they're doing it. They need critical thinking skills. They need problem-solving skills. They need interpersonal skills so that they can connect with one another better, network better. They need leadership skills. They need research skills. These are the skills that are going to take them places that they've never been before. They've got to have those foundational tools to do whatever else they're going to do beyond that. We can teach them that at home. It's too late now for some of us. They've already gone on and have started families on their own. But these are the things that they need. Unfortunately, for many of us, we don't even have those skills. We don't know what critical thinking is. What does that mean? How do you problem solve? Like, what is the steps to that? We don't even know. Why? Because we got a skill. We worked from the time we got out of college until the time we retired, and we're done. One skill set, moved on, moved up in the company. That's it. So we've got to be able to move and breathe and have an understanding for them. Give them confidence. Allow them to network. Allow them to collaborate. Be positive. Give them a winning attitude. Guide them. Give them community-based learning. Be deliberate in your approach to millennials so that you can better understand them. They're not wrong. They're not wrong at all. I want to leave you with this scripture. It's from Colossians 2:8, and it says, "See to it that no one takes you captive through philosophy and empty deception, according to the tradition of men." I would say here, past generations. "According to the elementary principles of the world," which we have fallen victim to, folks, "rather than according to Christ." Be authentic, be transparent, be an active listener. Love millennials. They are an amazing generation. Extend out to them, love them, embrace them, guide them, direct them, encourage them, and love them. I love you all. God bless you, and have a wonderful rest of your evening.